Guys, it's Adam. I'm back and it's time for another review, and this time it is Mirror's Edge Catalyst. Now, this game is a prequel or sequel, reboot, remake? It's a something. I'm not sure. There was a game called Mirror's Edge which came out 8 years ago, 2008, and this is the follow-up to it. Nobody knows what it is, but is it any good? Let's find out. Let's start the review. And we'll kick things off like we always do with the graphics. And yeah, you've got a really, really good looking game here. I'm playing on Xbox One, and the first thing I noticed when I started playing is that it is running at 60 frames per second, so there's a sort of smoothness to it. And because it's a game that's about your free running and your parkour and your hand-to-hand combat, that 60 frames really does make a positive impact on the gameplay, and it really does help it, and it just makes it all smooth and buttery and lovely. And yeah, this is a really good looking game, and going into sort of the character models, some of them look excellent, like Faith herself. It's, you know, you're talking sort of uncanny valley. But some of the characters, and especially some of the sort of NPCs, have kind of got that sort of potato face thing going on, where they just kind of look like synthetic humans, you know, like clones or something. They just don't look quite right, you know, their skin is too shiny. So, you know, the major characters, the character models look great, but the not so important characters don't look as good. But for the most part, you have got some excellent graphics. The world itself, the world of Mirror's Edge Catalyst looks great. You know, it's bright colours, big wide open spaces, you can see for miles, great draw distances. It's a really good looking game. Graphics, rock solid. Next up is sound, and as always, I like to let you guys have a little listen for yourselves so you can get a general idea of what it's like. So here you go. Yeah, that was some of the sound for you, and as you could hear there's some really good ambient sound effects. You know, the sound of footsteps, or the sounds of kicks and punches connecting with faces and chests. It all sounds good when Faith is running on different surfaces, if she's on gravel, or if she's on glass. You know, it all sounds lovely, and the sort of atmosphere, you can hear the cars down on the street below. You know, the ambient sound really does sound really, really good. And when she's running and she jumps and she connects with a ladder and it clangs with, you know, the metal as she connects with it. Ambient sound sounds great. The sound work is excellent. When it comes to the voice acting, it's actually a little bit of a sort of mixed bag. You know, like even with Faith herself, the actress playing her, you know, for the most part she's very good, but there are a couple of lines where she seems kind of wooden or disinterested. And again, it's the same with the supporting characters. Some of them are voiced really, really well, and some of them are voiced, you know, in a way that's completely forgettable, just vanilla. So, you know, voice work is sort of hit and miss, but the ambient sound and the sort of general sound is excellent. And that soundtrack, which the original game was known for, comes back here. The soundtrack is actually really, really good. So the sound, for the most part, is very good. Next up is the most important aspect, and that is the gameplay. And you need to strap yourselves in for this one, guys, because I've actually written notes for this, like some sort of f***ing professional or something. Because things are about to get mixed. So, here we go. Okay. I don't know why I'm shuffling papers, because my notes are on my phone. Yeah, so let's start with the good things, okay? As far as the gameplay is concerned, what I love about this game is the parkour, the sense of speed, the gravity, the movement. When you're running on those rooftops, and when you jump and you fall and you land, you can feel the speed, you can feel the gravity, and you can feel the impact when Faith hits the floor. The sense of movement in this game is just fantastic, and it really sort of brings the game to life, and it makes it stand out as well from other games. You know, games like Dying Light have tried the parkour aspect, but as far as the parkour and the movement is concerned, this game puts all others to shame. So I really, really like that. Also, I really like the combat in terms of how it looks, because it's actually kind of simple. You know, it's X for punch and Y for kick on the Xbox One, and you can sort of put a sort of directional input into the kick, so you can kick a person to the left or to the right. You can use the triggers to move behind people, kick them in the back. It's simple and effective, and it looks, like I say, it looks really good. It feels really satisfying when you connect with a kick, or one of the best things is when you take a big jump and you land and you kick somebody and it puts them down in one hit. That is very satisfying. So I like the feel of the combat, even though it isn't very deep, but the combat is fun. That's important. Also, as we know, in the first Mirror's Edge, there was a bit of debate amongst fans about the weapons, and a lot of people felt that, you know, the weapons didn't really add anything. It took the unique concept of Mirror's Edge, and adding the weapons into it sort of just pushed it more towards a traditional FPS, which a lot of people didn't like. So in this game, they've actually got rid of the weapons, and they've made it so that Faith actually can't use the weapons. I think they come up with a sort of an explanation for it, where the enemy soldiers have a sort of biometric system, so only they can use their weapons, which makes sense. I suppose this is the future. That is the type of thing that happens in futuristic games and movies. So they have done away with the weapons, and I think that actually helps the gameplay, because it means you focus on the movement and you focus on the hand-to-hand combat. So I'm fine with that. Another thing that people debated over the original game was the runner vision, and I like in this game that you can actually sort of change how much of it is used in the game, or how strong it is in the game. You can turn it off completely, so that you are making your own way around the world, you're jumping, whatever, it's up to you. But also you can put it on so it's on full strength, and you've got this sort of red beam of light which guides you everywhere that you need to go. So I like the fact that the runner vision is adjustable. As I've said before, the graphics are solid, the frame rate is good, the sound is excellent, apart from some ropey voice acting. But we will get into the cons and the things I don't like about the game, or the things that sort of drag it down a little bit, in my opinion. The world itself, I know it's a futuristic world, but it kind of feels a bit sort of sterile and a bit lifeless. You know, it's very rare you come across any other people, which makes sense, you're on the rooftops, but it kind of takes away from making it feel like a real world. You know, when there's just like, every now and then there's an enemy soldier, and you might see like a random NPC who has a side mission for you. But yeah, it kind of has a sort of lifeless feel to it, but it looks really good, and that comparison for me not only puts it on a par with the original game, but also Syndicate. Does anybody remember Syndicate? Which came out a couple of years ago, again from EA. You know, it looked good, it sounded good, but it kind of felt a bit dull and lifeless, and the game world did, and this game kind of has this going for it as well. The story is kind of, I don't know, it's a little bit sort of irrelevant. It's not a bad story, but it's not a massively original story, you know, without getting into spoilers. You know, it's just kind of, there's a good guy, there's bad guys, you know, there's betrayals along the way, there's people who don't like you at the start and you have to win them over. You know, there's nothing original there with the story. And another thing, and this kind of all feeds into the same problem, is that I think this game is kind of like, it's like EA have made an Ubisoft game, because you know, you've got the side missions, but there's a lack of variety in them, because they all basically come down to you talking to an NPC. They say, run to this place as fast as you can, you know, and it's the different variations on getting somewhere as fast as you can from point A to B, which you know, there isn't a lot of variety there. And there are side missions and collectibles everywhere, and the collectibles, similar again to a Ubisoft game, they're kind of dull. You know, you pick up like microchips and you pick up these big glowy yellow things, and you know, there's nothing exciting. There aren't any exciting collectibles. The game even sort of has watchtowers or antenna or satellite towers, whatever you call them, that all Ubisoft games have. You get to a tower or an antenna and the guards are there, you beat them up, you take out the card or the chip out of the antenna, and then the bad guys come chasing after you in a helicopter and you have to escape from the zone. It all feels very Ubisoft, and you know, so there isn't a mass amount of originality when it comes to this game. So when it'll come down to the verdict, it'll be a case of, does the good outweigh the bad? So speaking of the verdict, let's get right into it, shall we? For me, this game is a little bit of a mixed bag, but for the most part, I really did enjoy it. It's a game where the core gameplay, which is all about that parkour and that free running and the climbing, you know, I really enjoy that. That is the core element of the game, and that's what kept me coming back, and that is really strong. But there are issues like some of the voice acting and the general layout of the game and the way it's set up, like I said, like a Ubisoft game, like an Assassin's Creed or a Far Cry, where there's just sort of like a checklist on a map and you just tick them off and you go through everything. You do a tower, you do a side mission, you get a collectible. There's that sort of element to it, which for me personally, I'm a little bit bored of that style of game now. But, you know, there are pluses to it. You know, the graphics are great, the sound is excellent, there's some nice new additions to the game, like something I didn't mention before is the mag rope, which basically makes you Spider-Man, where you run, you sling this rope out, you swing from building to building. It's very satisfying, but it's not in the game that much. It's not something that you can use anywhere. You can only use it on certain things, which is a little bit frustrating. Also, there is, I wouldn't say multiplayer, but there is user-generated content where you can create things like time trials, which, you know, again, it's like the side missions in the game. It's get from here to here as quick as you can. So I like the way it works. It's really simple to set up, where you just set checkpoints and then you finish, you set it up, you give it a go yourself, you set your time, and then you let others give it a go. You know, it's really simple to use. But again, it's just getting from point A to point B as quick as you can. And, you know, I think there is a lack of variety in the gameplay, which ultimately holds it back from being an essential must-play game. So when it all comes down to it, guys, what is the score? Now, for me, this is a good game. At times, it's a very good game, but it's no more than that. So with my review process, I normally like to start at a 10. I go into every game with a 10, and then I work my way down and I take things off until I get to the score that I'm happy with. And for me, this is somewhere between a 7 and an 8. So for the first time since I've been doing reviews, I'm actually bringing a decimal point into it, and I'm going for that 7.5. I'm splitting it because this game ultimately is fun. It is enjoyable, and that core gameplay is great. Ultimately, what it comes down to is I enjoyed this game. It's not a great game, it's not a fantastic game. It might not even be as good as the original, but it is a good game and it is an enjoyable game. Maybe not worth going out and buying straight away at full price, maybe waiting until the price drops a little bit, but I suppose that depends on what you thought of the first game. If you loved the original Mirror's Edge, I imagine you'll love this game. If you hated it, you'll probably hate this one. So it all depends where you stand with that original game. And if you're new to the series, it's absolutely worth giving it a go. So there we go, guys. That's the review. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to us. Let's get to 1,000 subscribers as quick as we can. And I will catch you next time.